I lost my husband before the divorce papers were ever filed. The air conditioner hummed above me. Cold air crawled across the backs of my hands. Burned coffee sat untouched near my elbow, bitter and stale, while the leather chair pressed a hard seam into my spine. On the screen, Eric smiled with the confidence I had once loved. My wife's role was mostly administrative support, he said. Across the table, my mother-in-law lowered her eyes. She knew. 3 weeks earlier, Judith Cole had been sitting at my dining table, lifting a forkful of roast chicken as if she owned the room. "Don't act important," she said. "You're just a desk jockey." The words landed softly. That made them worse. No one shouted. No glass shattered. The only sound was silverware touching china, and the low murmur of the television in the next room. My husband kept cutting his meat. I was 42 years old, a major in the United States Army, and I had spent most of my adult life learning how to stay still when everyone around me expected a reaction. Judith mistook that stillness for weakness. The bottle rested in a silver bucket near her chair, sweating into a folded towel. The room smelled of rosemary, browned butter, and Judith's sharp gardenia perfume. Eric raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said. I lifted my water. Judith clicked her tongue. "Samantha, this is your husband's night," she said. "You could at least use the good crystal." "I'm on duty early," I said. Eric's sister Megan leaned toward me. "Was the interview as intense as Eric said?" she asked. Eric answered before I could. "They pushed hard," he said. "Scenario planning, crisis leadership, continuity failures, all the things Hawthorne needs fixed." Then he used a sentence that tightened something beneath my ribs. "A system fails first at the point where people stop sharing truth." My fingers paused against the cool side of my glass. I had written that sentence at 2 a.m. in a private draft of my operational resilience framework. Eric had never seen me write it. Megan smiled. "That sounds brilliant," she said. Judith beamed at her son. "He has always understood pressure," she said. "Even as a boy, he could walk into chaos and make everyone listen." "It is not," Judith said. "Leadership is natural in this family." Her eyes moved toward me. I glanced at the clock above the archway. 7:38. 2 days earlier, Colonel Denise Warren had called me into her office. A public affairs captain sat beside her with a folder open on the desk. The mission had been partially declassified. The evening news had received approved footage. My name and command role would be stated publicly. Eric had spent months asking when the mission might be released. He had asked whether commanders would be named. He had asked whether training material developed afterward could be traced to the operation, so I did not tell him the broadcast date. At 7:40, the anchor's voice shifted. "Tonight, newly declassified footage reveals details of a high-risk joint recovery mission conducted overseas." Eric's knife stopped against his plate. Judith turned toward the television. On the screen, grainy footage showed a convoy moving through smoke. A younger version of me stood beside a tactical vehicle, one hand pressed to my headset. The room seemed to contract. Judith whispered to Eric, "You said her name would stay out of it." I heard her clearly. Eric's face drained of color. The anchor continued. "When communication failures separated 2 units from their extraction route, the mission commander reorganized the operation under fire. Video showed me pointing toward a secondary route, directing vehicles away from a blocked corridor. The mission commander was Major Samantha Cole." Judith's fork slipped from her hand. It struck the plate with a bright metallic crack. Nobody moved. On television, my voice came through the field recording. "Hold the eastern line. Move the medical team first. Nobody gets left behind." I did not watch myself. I watched Eric. Eric looked at his phone. The screen lit his face. A message preview appeared before he turned it over. "Laura Bennett, we need to discuss your presentation." Judith stared at me, then back at the television. Her smug smile was gone. Megan spoke first. "You commanded that?" "Yes," I said. Judith swallowed. "I thought you handled logistics." "I did," I said. "Operational logistics." She looked toward Eric as if he could repair the room. Eric forced a laugh. "You know how classified work is," he said. "Sam could never tell us much." Judith recovered enough to lift her chin. "Well, that does not change what tonight is about. This dinner is for Eric." Megan looked at her mother. "You just called Samantha a desk jockey." "I was teasing," Judith said. "No," I said, "you were not." Eric's gaze snapped toward me. "Can we not turn this into a fight?" I set my napkin beside my plate. "I have not raised my voice." Judith pushed back from the table. "I suddenly have a headache." She gathered her purse too quickly. Her chair legs scraped the hardwood. Eric stood. "I'll walk you out." Judith caught his wrist. "Call me when you can speak privately," she said. The house smelled different after everyone left. Cold meat, melted candle wax, champagne. No one had finished. Eric carried plates into the kitchen. "That was uncomfortable," he said. "Laura Bennett wants to discuss your presentation." A plate stopped midway to the sink. He placed it down carefully. "You read my phone?" The message appeared on the screen. "She is on the selection panel," he said. "She probably wants clarification." "About what?" "Military terminology." "What military terminology did you use?" His shoulders stiffened. "Why are you interrogating me?" "I asked one question." "You always do this," he said. "Something good happens for me, and suddenly I am on trial." I studied the man standing beneath our kitchen lights. "Did you use my framework?" I asked. Eric turned on the faucet. Water struck the metal sink hard enough to cover the first second of his silence. "We talk about work all the time," he said. "That was not my question." He shut off the water. "Maybe you cannot stand someone else in this house being recognized." Instead, I looked past him toward the built-in shelf beside the breakfast nook. A black tablet rested behind a stack of unopened mail. Eric had told me he recycled it 6 months earlier. He followed my gaze. "That thing barely works," he said. "I thought it was gone." "I must have forgotten." He picked it up before I could. Then he carried it upstairs. Later, while the shower ran behind our bedroom door, I opened my cloud account on my laptop. I selected security activity. Eric's old tablet. Trusted device. Last active 3 days ago. I clicked the entry. A list of accessed folders opened. The access time was 2:14 in the morning. I had been on duty at Fort Belvoir. Upstairs, the shower stopped. The house went quiet. I took a photograph of the screen with my phone. The photograph on my phone felt heavier than any medal I had worn because it carried the first proof against him. Then I closed the laptop just as Eric's footsteps reached the hall. He entered the room in a clean shirt, drying his hair with a towel. "What are you doing?" he asked. I placed my hand flat on the closed computer. "Looking for something I thought was lost," I said. Eric watched me for a long second. Then he smiled. "What did you find?" I looked at the man I had married. "Not enough," I said. But the first piece was already in my hand. Eric's smile held for 1 second too long. Then he looked at the closed laptop beneath my palm and folded the towel over the back of a chair. "You're acting strange," he said. "I'm tired," I replied. "That is not what I meant." His voice stayed low, almost gentle, but his eyes kept dropping toward the computer. Water still clung to the ends of his hair. The room smelled of soap, damp cotton, and the faint metallic heat from the vent. I slid my phone into the pocket of my robe. "Long day," I said. Eric took a step closer. "Did you open my files?" The question came too quickly. I looked at him. "Why would your files be in my cloud account?" His jaw tightened. I asked a simple question. So did I. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he laughed without humor and reached for the lamp. "You have duty early," he said. "We should sleep." I let him believe the conversation was over. That night, he turned away from me and kept one hand beneath his pillow. I knew his phone was there because the screen flashed twice against the wall. Each time, he checked it without making a sound. I stayed still until his breathing deepened. At 4:30, I dressed in the dark. Downstairs, the tablet was gone from the shelf. By 6:15, I was seated in a secure office with my personal laptop open beside a legal pad. The security activity page showed the same tablet, last active 3 days ago. I opened the detailed session history. The device had accessed a folder named Resilience Drafts. It had opened several versions of my framework, including one labeled Private Notes. The download history stretched back 4 months. I exported the activity report and saved it in 2 separate locations. Then I printed a copy. A shadow crossed the frosted glass. Colonel Denise Warren entered carrying coffee and a stack of folders. "You are early," Denise said. "So are you." Denise studied my face before placing the folders down. "What happened?" I turned the laptop slightly, not enough for her to read the personal information. I need guidance about a professional document I developed on my own time. Denise set her coffee aside. What kind of guidance? Ownership, classification, what I can legally share if someone used it without permission. Her expression sharpened. Is this connected to the broadcast? Indirectly. Denise pulled out the chair across from me. Start with the document. I explained that the operational resilience framework had grown from lessons I learned during the mission, but contained no names, locations, unit movements, intelligence sources, or protected operational details. I had rewritten every example for a civilian leadership course I once considered teaching. Denise asked, was it created on a government computer? No. During official duty hours? No. Did anyone from the Army direct you to create it? No. Has it gone through a security review? The presentation version did, when I used a small portion at the logistics seminar. Denise nodded slowly. Then preserve everything. Do not edit the originals. Do not confront anyone until you know where the document went. My phone vibrated against the desk. Eric. I let it ring once before answering. Good morning, I said. His tone was warm. Morning. I wanted to make sure we are okay. We left things unfinished. I know, Eric said. I hate that. Can we have dinner tonight? Just us? I have work. You always have work. I saw more coverage online. They mentioned the framework from the mission. Was that the same framework you developed for your seminar? My gaze shifted to Denise. That is a specific question, I said. I am interested in your work. Since when? Eric went silent. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. Forget it. I was trying to connect with you. The call ended. Denise leaned back. What did he ask? I told her. Give him nothing, Denise said. Not until you know what he has. By lunchtime, I had reviewed every security alert from the previous 6 months. Several had been buried beneath routine account notices. The tablet had opened my framework before each stage of Eric's selection process. The first access occurred 2 days before he submitted his leadership portfolio. The second came the night before his screening interview. The third happened 48 hours before the final panel. At home that evening, Eric had set the dining table for 2. Candles burned beside a bowl of pasta. He kissed my cheek. I am sorry about last night, he said. I placed my bag on the chair. For what? For being defensive. About what? His smile flickered. Everything. We sat. Eric poured wine for himself and water for me. I want to start over, he said. With dinner? With us. He reached across the table and covered my hand. I know my mother can be cruel, Eric said. She should never have called you that. You did not correct her. I froze. You have had years to prepare. Eric withdrew his hand. That is not fair. Was she wrong? Of course she was wrong. Then why did she believe it? He looked toward the candles. My mother believes whatever makes her feel important. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, I am updating the framework. His attention snapped back to me. What are you changing? Part 3. Why? I found a weakness. Eric lifted his wine. What kind of weakness? I have not decided how to fix it yet. He drank too quickly. After dinner, I carried my bag upstairs and left my personal laptop closed on the desk. At 11:20, Eric said he was going to sleep. At 11:46, my phone received a security notification. A trusted device had accessed resilience drafts. I opened the alert. The old tablet was active. It had gone directly to Part 3. I took screenshots, exported the new activity line, and placed the phone face down before Eric returned from the hallway. He climbed into bed. Still awake? He asked. Almost asleep. The next morning, Judith arrived without calling. Her gardenia perfume entered the house before she did. She wore cream slacks, pearl earrings, and an expression of practiced concern. I brought breakfast, Judith said. She placed a pastry box on the counter. Eric was already gone. Judith watched me pour coffee. That broadcast surprised all of us, she said. Did it? Her fingers paused against the cardboard box. We knew you had responsibilities. We did not know you were leading operations. Eric knew. Judith looked toward the window. He knew you had been in dangerous places. That was not what I said. Judith pressed her lips together. Then she smiled. The news has created excitement. Reporters may call. You should be careful. I have public affairs guidance. Good. Then you understand why saying too much could be harmful. To whom? To your family. She folded her hands. Eric is close to something important. This is not the time to pull attention away from him. My name was released by the Army, not by me. Attention does not care where it comes from. I raised the coffee cup. Bitter heat touched my tongue. Judith lowered her voice. You have your rank, your medals. Your respect. Let him have this. This? His opportunity. What exactly do you think belongs to him? A pulse moved in her throat. Before she could answer, my phone vibrated. An email had arrived from Laura Bennett. The subject line read, "Confidential question." I opened it beneath the counter. "Major Cole, I believe a candidate has presented your work as his own. Before I report it formally, I need to know whether you authorized him." A photograph appeared below the message. The slide carried Eric's name. The diagram beneath it was mine, so was the error in the lower corner. Judith was still speaking, but her words blurred beneath the pounding in my ears. I enlarged the image. One sentence had been copied exactly. "A system fails first at the point where people stop sharing truth." I looked up at my mother-in-law. The truth had entered our house, and neither of them could control it. She smiled as though she had come to protect her son. For the first time, I understood what she was protecting him from. Me. I kept my eyes on Judith while the email burned against my palm. Her gaze dropped to the phone, then returned to my face. "What did you receive?" Judith asked. "An email." "From whom?" "Someone with a question." "Eric does not need trouble right now," she said. "What kind of trouble?" Judith straightened. "You know exactly what I mean." I did not. Not yet. That was why I let her leave. The front door closed behind her gardenia perfume. Rain tapped the windows. I opened Laura's message again. The photograph showed one slide from Eric's presentation. His name sat beneath the title. My framework filled the rest. Same sequence, same language, same error. One word carried the same old misspelling. Resilience. Nobody recreated that by accident. I typed carefully. "Laura, I did not authorize Eric to present this work as his own. Please preserve the original submission and related records." Once sent, I could no longer call this a misunderstanding. I pressed send. Laura replied within minutes. "Thank you. I will report the concern through Hawthorne's compliance process. Please preserve your records." I saved both messages and opened the oldest version of my framework. The first page held half sentences and questions written in capitals. I clicked an audio note attached to the draft. My own tired voice filled the room. The first failure was not fuel. It was the delay between what the Eastern team knew and what command believed. Truth has to travel faster than authority. My throat tightened. The document existed because people almost died. Eric had polished that lesson for a boardroom, removing the fear, the lives behind it, and finally me. Eric entered early. Wet shoes squeaked across the floor. "How was your morning?" Eric asked from the office doorway. "Productive. My mother said she came by." "She did. What did she want?" "You should ask her." He stepped inside. "She said you were cold." "Did she tell you why?" "No." I turned the laptop so the blank desktop faced him. "How did your final interview go?" Eric blinked. "Why?" "You said the panel pushed hard. Tell me what they asked." "They wanted to know how the framework could work across departments." "What did you tell them?" "That it reduces confusion during crisis." "Who developed the lost communication sequence?" He looked toward the window. "I did." "From what event?" "A supplier shutdown." "Which one?" His eyes came back to mine. "Are you testing me?" I asked where the idea came from. "You know how development works, Sam. People contribute." "Who contributed?" "We talked about this stuff for years." "Then why is only your name on the slide?" Silence filled the room. Eric stood. "You saw my presentation." "I saw one slide." "Laura sent it." "You knew she might recognize it," I said. "No. You knew someone might." "Stop turning this into a crime." "What would you call it?" "A husband using ideas discussed inside his marriage." "You downloaded my files." His face changed. Only slightly, but enough. I opened the activity report and placed the printed page on the desk. The old tablet appeared beside each access time. "You gave me access years ago," he said, "for tax documents and family photographs. You never said your drafts were forbidden. I never said they were yours." His voice rose. "Everything I have done has been for us. You submitted my work under your name. I adapted it. You erased mine. I made it usable." Eric rubbed a hand across his mouth. "That came out wrong." "No, it came out clean. You already have rank, recognition, a respected career. I needed one thing that was mine. You chose something that was mine." His eyes sharpened. "Do you know what it is like being introduced as Major Cole's husband?" "Yes," I said. "It is being introduced beside someone you claim to love." He turned away. For one dangerous second, pity moved through me. Then I looked at the activity report. Sacrifice did not explain deletion. What did you tell the panel about me? I asked. Eric's shoulders went rigid. Nothing that matters. That is not an answer. They asked whether you contributed. And? I said you helped with presentation. What kind of help? Formatting. Language. Administrative support? He turned slowly. Judith's phrase hung between us, the fork against the plate, the whisper when the news began. You said her name would stay out of it. That was the story, wasn't it? I asked. You built the application around the idea that I could not contradict you. His phone vibrated with a message from Hawthorne. His expression went blank. What is it? I asked. Nothing. Then show me. He slipped the phone into his pocket. I have to go back to the office. Did you know the broadcast would identify me? Eric stopped. My mother heard it might happen, he said. From whom? She knows people. That is not what she said. He looked over his shoulder. What did she say? You said my name would stay out of it. Color left his face. For the first time, he looked afraid, because I had listened. That afternoon, Laura met me in a quiet conference room at a public library near Fairfax. She carried written authorization from compliance. I can show selected material for authorship verification, Laura said. She placed 3 pages on the table. Each carried Eric's name. Each contained my work. One included a decision tree from the mission, relabeled for corporate departments, but otherwise unchanged. Laura tapped one section. I asked Eric why medical support moved before communications were restored. What did he say? He said speed matters more than process. That is not the reason. What is? The wounded cannot wait for the system to become functional. You move care first, then rebuild communication around the movement. Laura watched me. That is what I thought. She turned to the next page. What did he say about my role? I asked. Laura read from her notes. He said, my wife helped make the material presentable. Her work is mostly administrative. The room seemed to lose air. Dinner had been a rehearsal of a lie already told elsewhere. Laura closed the folder. Can you prove development history? Yes. Can you prove he accessed it? Yes. Then preserve everything. Before I reached the parking lot, Eric sent one message. Compliance froze my candidacy. Tell me exactly what you said. A second message arrived. Do not destroy my career over a misunderstanding. Judith called less than a minute later. Samantha, she said, we need to handle this as a family. No, I replied. You already handled it as a family. What is that supposed to mean? It means Eric stole my work, and you helped explain why nobody should look for my name. Her voice cooled. You have no idea how much he sacrificed for you. Which sacrifice gave him ownership of my work? You are his wife. That is not an answer. In a marriage, people share. Then why did he remove my name? Silence. Judith spoke carefully. Because the board needed to see him as a leader. And me as what? Someone who supported him. A desk jockey. That was a joke. No, that was the cover story. Her breathing changed. If you continue, Judith said, you will humiliate your husband. He did that himself. You will destroy your marriage. I gripped the phone tighter. Then maybe he should have thought about our marriage before he used my silence against me. She ended the call. By evening, I had preserved every draft, audio note, approval, and activity log. Eric came home after 9. He did not remove his coat. Compliance contacted me, he said. I know. They suspended the process. They preserved it. What exactly did you give them? The truth. His mouth flattened. If they investigate the source, they may ask questions about your files. You could put your clearance at risk. No, you do not know that. I verified it before I responded. Anger flushed his face. With Denise? Yes. You went to your command before talking to your husband. My husband had already been inside my files. The front door opened behind him. Judith entered using her key. Neither of us had invited her. She closed the door and looked from Eric to me. We are ending this tonight, Judith said. I rose from my chair. Her key was still in her hand. Judith placed the key on the table. Sit down, she ordered. I looked at Eric. He did not look surprised to see her. They had planned this before either walked through the door. I remained standing. No, I said. Judith's hand closed over the key. Eric moved beside her. 2 people faced me across the table where the truth had first appeared on television. This time, there was no news anchor to speak for me. This time, my voice would have to be enough. Judith's fingers tightened around the brass key until the edges pressed white marks into her skin. Sit down, she repeated. The refrigerator hummed behind me. Rain ticked against the kitchen window. Eric's damp coat smelled of wet wool. and Judith's perfume hung between us, too sweet and too sharp. I am standing in my own home, I said. This is Eric's home too, Judith replied. Yes. Then stop behaving as if you can make decisions for both of you. Eric stepped forward. Sam, nobody is trying to take anything from you. I looked at him. You took my work. I used work we discussed during our marriage. You downloaded private drafts while I was on duty. You gave me access years ago for tax files and family photographs. You never marked the folder private. The title said Private Notes. His mouth closed. Judith pushed a chair back. Enough with the courtroom language. You are husband and wife. That did not stop him from presenting himself as the sole author. He adapted the material, Judith said, by removing my name. The board needed to evaluate Eric. So you helped them evaluate a man who did not exist. Eric's face hardened. That is dramatic. No, dramatic was watching my field decisions appear beneath your name. He lowered his voice. You have no idea what that position would have meant for us. Tell me. It would have doubled my salary. There was an executive bonus, stock options, a path to senior leadership. There it was. Not pride, a calculation. Judith folded her arms. Eric has spent years sacrificing for your career. Moving with your wife does not buy ownership of her mind. Eric struck the table with his palm. Silverware jumped. You know what it is like to be introduced as Major Cole's husband? Yes. It means people know who your wife is. You never had to stand beside someone while every room decided she mattered more. The words came out before he could soften them. Judith did not look surprised. So this was never about one opportunity, I said. You wanted to make me smaller. I wanted something of my own. You chose something of mine. Judith stepped between us. This is why Eric could not talk to you. You turn everything into a test of loyalty. No, he turned my silence into a business strategy. Her expression shifted. I looked at Eric. When did you tell your mother about the framework? She found out after I submitted the first draft, he said. After the second interview, Judith said at the same time. Silence followed. Which one? I asked. Eric rubbed his face. This is not helping. It is helping me. Judith lifted her chin. I helped refine the language. That is all. Did you tell him to call me administrative support? The panel needed clarity. Did you tell him I could not challenge the claim because the mission was classified? Judith's lips parted. Eric said, Sam. I turned toward him. Did she? He said nothing. The answer settled over the kitchen. Judith reached for the key. I covered it first. You do not enter this house without calling again. This key came from my son. This house belongs to both of us. It does not belong to you. Eric gave me permission. I am withdrawing mine. You cannot order me out of my son's life. I am ordering you out of my kitchen. Judith stared at me. For years she had confused restraint with surrender. Eric moved closer. Do not do this. Ask her to leave. She came to help us. She came to control the damage. Judith picked up her purse. At least one person here understands family. I slid the key into my pocket. Family does not erase your name and call it support. She left. Eric waited until her car disappeared. Give me the key. No, she is my mother. And I am your wife. You are acting like an enemy. You built your promotion on the belief that I could not defend myself. He poured himself a drink. You could end this with one email. What would it say? That you authorized me to use the framework. I did not. That we developed it together. We did not. That there was confusion. There was deception. His glass struck the counter. You would destroy your husband over a document. You were willing to destroy your wife for a title. He drank without answering. I walked upstairs and pulled down a small suitcase. Uniforms first, then civilian clothes, medication, toiletries, and personal documents. I placed my laptop, external drive, printed logs, and original notebooks inside a padded bag. Eric appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? Leaving for a few days. No, you do not get to say that. This is your home. It is also where you accessed my files. I had permission to use the account. For family records, not my work. Where will you go? A temporary apartment near work. You planned this. I prepared for the possibility that you would choose your lie over our marriage. He stepped closer. If you leave, you make this worse. No, I stopped giving you access to what you have already used. Eric reached for the padded bag. I moved it behind me. Do not touch it. His hand stopped. I am still your husband, he said. That is what makes this betrayal different. Before leaving, I photographed the tablet where it rested on the console table. I did not touch it. Eric followed me to the door. Sam, please! For 1 second, his face looked like the man who had waited through late flights and packed our kitchen during transfers. Then I remembered the slide. My lawyer will contact you. His expression emptied. You already have a lawyer? I have someone advising me on preservation and separation. You went behind my back. You entered my files behind mine. Cold rain hit my face. The steering wheel felt slick beneath my palms. Wet pavement released the mineral smell of summer rain. I did not drive until my breathing slowed. The temporary apartment was plain and quiet. Beige walls, a refrigerator that clicked every few minutes. I set my suitcase beside the bed and called Rachel Donovan. She answered on the second ring. Tell me what happened. I described the confrontation, the clearance threat, Judith's key, and the tablet. Do not access his device, Rachel said. Do not remove it. Preserve the activity from your own account. I exported the logs. Good. Send them to me. I will issue preservation notices. Can Hawthorne inspect the tablet? Not without consent or legal process. Hawthorne controls its email, recordings, and submission system. Your cloud provider controls your account history. Keep those sources separate. Her precision steadied me. If your account generates deletion alerts or device removal notices, save them, Rachel continued. Do not confront Eric. My phone buzzed. A trusted device had requested removal from my account. Another alert followed. 3 synchronized framework files had been marked for deletion. The timestamp was 9 minutes after Eric received Rachel's preservation notice. I read the alerts aloud. Rachel's voice sharpened. Take screenshots. Export the activity report again. Do not log into the tablet. My fingers moved across the keyboard. The apartment was so quiet I heard every key click. He thinks removing the device will erase the server history, Rachel said. It will not? No. I saved the report in 3 places and sent 1 copy to her. The next morning, Marcus Hale called from Hawthorne Compliance. Hawthorne has issued a legal hold on internal records related to Mr. Cole's candidacy, Marcus said. We are preserving company email, uploaded presentations, panel recordings, and advisory communications. I have activity records from my personal account. We cannot access your personal account. You may provide exported records through counsel. We will compare them only with Hawthorne's internal timeline. My lawyer will send them. Marcus paused. Did you authorize Mr. Cole to describe you as administrative support? No. Did you authorize him to claim sole authorship? No. Did you send him the framework for his candidacy? No. We will be in touch, Marcus said. Rachel called again minutes later. Eric transferred nearly all the available cash from the joint savings account. The room tilted. To where? An account connected to Judith. Can the bank reverse it? Not because I ask. Both of you are account holders. So, the money is gone. It moved. That is not the same as disappearing. What happens now? We document it. We demand preservation. If he spends or hides marital funds after a dispute begins, the court can account for it later. My mouth tasted metallic. How much did he leave? Enough to keep the account open. The cruelty was measured. Eric had not panicked. He had calculated. My husband had stolen my work to build his future. Now he was taking our money to finance the fight against me now. Rachel's words stayed in the apartment after the call ended. The refrigerator clicked. Rainwater slid down the window in narrow silver lines. My coffee had gone cold, but I kept both hands around the mug because the ceramic gave me something solid to hold. Nearly all the money from our joint savings account sat in an account connected to Judith. Eric had left enough behind to keep the account open. He had measured what he could take, then moved the rest where he thought I could not reach it. Rachel called again before noon. I sent a preservation demand to Eric's attorney, Rachel said. I also demanded that Judith not spend or move the funds. Can they ignore it? They can try. Then we ask for a full accounting and seek credit during equitable distribution. So he gets to use our money while I pay to stop him. For now, Rachel said. But every dollar leaves a trail. I looked at the security report spread across the table. So does every file. Exactly. Rachel's voice softened. Samantha, do you have enough in your individual account for basic expenses? Yes. My salary covered the apartment, food, transportation, and legal retainer. Our shared life remained behind a locked door with both names on the deed. I am filing the complaint today, Rachel said. Once Eric is served, we can negotiate temporary possession of the house. What if he refuses? Then we ask the court. I closed my eyes. File it, I said. The complaint went out that afternoon. Eric called 8 times. I answered the 9th. You filed for divorce, Eric said. Yes. His breathing came fast through the phone. You did not even give us a chance. I asked whether you used my work. You lied. I admitted I adapted it. After I showed you the access log, you are ending 15 years over one mistake. One mistake does not require 4 months of downloads. Silence. Then Eric said, my lawyer told me not to discuss the account. You already discussed it when you emptied it. I protected our assets by transferring them to your mother. You were preparing to freeze everything. I could not freeze a joint account without a court order. You had a lawyer before I did. I needed one because my husband stole my work. His voice dropped. You always know how to make yourself sound righteous. I do not need to sound like anything. The records speak. He hung up. That evening, 3 messages arrived from relatives. Megan wrote that Eric was devastated. Judith sent a longer message. A wife should not use outside institutions to settle private pain. Eric supported every promotion, every move, every late night. Destroying him will not make you more accomplished. I read it twice. Then, I saved it. I did not answer. By morning, more messages arrived. Every version said Eric had sacrificed, Judith had only helped, and ideas spoken inside a home became shared property. Nobody asked why his name appeared alone. Nobody asked why mine had been erased. At work, Denise found me standing over a table of supply maps without seeing them. You are somewhere else, Denise said. My husband filed his defense before he filed anything with the court. Denise waited. He is telling the family I destroyed his career because I could not share attention. What are you going to do? Nothing. Denise raised an eyebrow. I am going to let him keep talking, I said. Every explanation gives him another version to maintain. That sounds more like you. My phone vibrated. Marcus Hale had sent a request for a secure meeting with Rachel present. The conference began at 2. Marcus sat before a plain gray wall. Rachel joined from her office. I kept the exported account log open on my screen. Marcus said, Hawthorne has preserved internal records related to Mr. Cole's candidacy and Mrs. Cole's advisory communications. Did Judith use a company account? Rachel asked. She used an active advisory account, Marcus replied. We recovered a chain that appears relevant. A document appeared on screen. The first email came from Eric. Mom, I found the framework I told you about. Sam cannot publicly challenge where it came from because the operation is still classified. Can you help me turn it into something the board will view as executive work? My hand went cold against the desk. The message was dated 6 days before Judith's first reply, before the second interview, before any claim that she had pushed him into the scheme. Marcus opened the response. Remove Samantha's name from the footer. Replace military labels with corporate language. Do not mention the mission. If asked about her role, say she helped organize the material. Rachel asked, Do you have the attachment metadata? Yes, Marcus said. The attachment was uploaded from Mr. Cole's Hawthorne account after the personal file had been altered. Another email followed. Eric wrote, Laura may recognize the sequence. Judith replied, Then establish early that Samantha's work is administrative. People remember the first explanation they hear. I heard Judith again at my dining table. You are just a desk jockey. It had not been cruelty spilling out over dinner. It had been rehearsal. Marcus continued. We also recovered a later message in which Mrs. Cole advised Mr. Cole that your name would likely remain unavailable to the public. On what basis? Rachel asked. None stated. Mr. Cole appears to have assured her. The timeline sat before me. Eric downloaded my work. Eric contacted Judith. Eric asked for help transforming it. Judith supplied the cover. For years, I had treated my husband as the reasonable man caught between 2 women. He had let me believe his mother created every conflict. Whenever she crossed a line, he sighed and said, You know how she is. Rachel asked Marcus to send the recovered chain through the formal process. Marcus nodded. There is more. We have restored the full interview recording. My stomach tightened. When is the hearing? Rachel asked. Next week. Mr. Cole and Mrs. Cole will both be required to attend. After the call, I sat without moving. Dust warmed by the vent scented the apartment while my marriage collapsed page by page. A knock came at the door. Eric stood outside. I did not invite him in. What are you doing here? I asked. I need to talk to you before the hearing. My lawyer told your lawyer all communication should go through counsel. This is not legal. This is us. There is no us outside the legal problem you created. His collar was open, his face tired. Then he said, My mother changed the presentation. I almost laughed. You sent her the file. She pushed me after that. You downloaded it before she knew. His eyes flickered. I continued. You wrote that I could not challenge you because the mission was classified. Where did you see that? That is your concern? Those emails are being taken out of context. What context makes them honest? Eric stepped closer. I felt invisible, Sam. So you erased me. I was going to fix it after I got the position. How? I would have credited you later, when nobody could take the job away. It would have helped both of us. You called me administrative support. The board would never have selected a man who looked like he lived off his wife's achievements. The sentence hung between us. You did live off them, I said. His mouth opened, then closed. I reached into the folder Rachel had prepared and removed the divorce complaint. You have been served through counsel, I said. I am not changing my decision. Eric stared at the pages. You are choosing strangers over your husband. No, I am choosing evidence over your version of love. He looked past me into the apartment. Are you really going to stay here while I live in our house? Not for long. What does that mean? Rachel proposed a temporary residence agreement. You move out, I return. Neither of us gives up ownership while the divorce is pending. I am not leaving my house. Then the court can decide. His jaw tightened. You think your uniform makes judges believe you. I am not wearing it to court. He left without another word. 2 days later, his lawyer accepted the temporary agreement. Eric would move to Judith's house. I would resume exclusive possession of the marital residence. Mortgage payments and final ownership would be resolved later. For once, silence in that apartment belonged only to me. On the morning Eric moved out, Rachel sent one final document. Hawthorne Defense Systems required Eric Cole and Judith Cole to appear before its compliance panel. Attached beneath the notice was a single line. The complete interview recording has been recovered and preserved. Eric had lied in writing. Soon, everyone would hear him lie in his own voice. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in a charcoal suit and left my uniform hanging in the closet. The choice mattered. Eric had already accused me of using rank as a weapon. Judith had told relatives that Hawthorne would fear the army more than it respected the truth. I wanted no medals, no ribbons, no insignia in that room. Only records. Rachel met me outside Hawthorne's headquarters in Fairfax. Glass walls reflected a pale sky. The lobby smelled of polished stone and coffee from the security desk. You do not have to answer questions outside the scope of authorship and access, Rachel said. I understand. And if Eric tries to speak to you privately, he can speak through counsel. Rachel studied me. You are ready. No, I said, but I am done protecting them. Marcus Hale waited upstairs with Hawthorne's general counsel, a human resources director, Laura Bennett, and 2 members of the executive selection committee. Eric sat at the far end of the table beside his attorney. His suit was immaculate. His face was not. Judith sat beside him in navy silk and pearls. She greeted Marcus by his first name. Marcus, surely we can resolve this without damaging everyone involved, Judith said. Marcus did not smile. We are here because the integrity of an executive selection process may have been compromised. Judith's hand tightened around her pen. I took the chair Rachel indicated. Eric looked at me. Sam, he said softly. Rachel answered before I could. Please direct communication through counsel. Eric leaned back. Marcus opened a folder. Mr. Cole, did you create the operational resilience framework submitted with your candidacy? Eric's attorney nodded for him to answer. Yes, Eric said, with informal contributions from my wife over the course of our marriage. Marcus placed 2 documents on the display. One showed my oldest draft. The other showed Eric's submission. Same structure, same phrasing, same misspelled word. Major Cole, Marcus said, when was your first version created? 11 months before Eric applied for the position. Did Mr. Cole contribute to that draft? No. Eric shifted. We discussed crisis systems at home, he said. Marcus looked at him. That was not the question. My development history appeared on screen. Date stamps stretched across months. Audio notes, revisions, public release approval for the seminar version. Marcus continued. Mr. Cole, you represented this framework as independent work developed through your corporate leadership experience. I adapted concepts discussed in my household. Then why did you remove Major Cole's name from the footer? Eric glanced toward Judith. Judith spoke. I advised him to simplify the material. Executive panels do not need a family history attached to every idea. Laura Bennett opened her notebook. You also advised him to describe Major Cole's contribution as administrative, Laura said. Judith's chin lifted. That was a fair description of the assistance Eric received. Was it? Laura asked. The room went still. Marcus advanced to the next document. A server-generated activity report from my cloud account appeared beside Hawthorne's internal upload history. Marcus said, for clarity, Hawthorne did not search a private device. Major Cole provided records from an account registered to her. Hawthorne supplied only its internal records. Eric's attorney leaned forward. My client had authorized access to the family account. For tax documents and photographs, I said. Rachel touched my wrist lightly, reminding me to wait. Marcus asked Eric, did Major Cole send you the framework for use in your candidacy? No, Eric said, but the device was trusted. Did she authorize you to upload the work to Hawthorne under your name? Eric hesitated. We shared ideas. Marcus repeated the question. No, Eric said. The next screen showed the tablet accessing my private folder while I was on duty. Minutes later, Hawthorne's system recorded Eric uploading an altered copy. A second line showed another download before his screening interview. A third came before the final panel. Then Marcus displayed the preservation notice. 9 minutes later, my account received a request to remove the trusted device and delete synchronized copies. Eric's attorney said, my client was cleaning up a device after losing access. Marcus replied, after receiving an instruction to preserve relevant records. I did not understand the scope, Eric said. You understood enough to act immediately, Marcus said. That was the first door closing. The second closed when Judith's emails appeared. Eric's first message filled the screen. Mom, I found the framework I told you about. Sam cannot publicly challenge where it came from because the operation is still classified. Can you help me turn it into something the board will view as executive work? Judith's face lost color. Eric stared at the table. Marcus read Judith's response aloud. Remove Samantha's name from the footer. Replace military labels with corporate language. If asked about her role, say she helped organize the material. Judith turned toward Eric. You told me she had already agreed to share it. Eric looked up sharply. No, I did not. You said it was part of your work. You knew exactly where it came from. Their attorneys tried to quiet them. Neither listened. Judith pointed at her son. You came to me after you had already downloaded it, and you told me how to make it pass review. There it was, not a misunderstanding, not a mother forcing an innocent son. A partnership built on the belief that I would stay silent. Marcus raised one hand. We will proceed. The lights dimmed. Eric appeared on the wall in the restored interview recording. He looked confident, relaxed, proud. A panelist asked, who developed the framework? Eric smiled on screen. I did. My wife helped make the material presentable, but her work is mostly administrative support. Judith's fork-striking china echoed in my memory. Desk jockey. The lie had been practiced before it reached my table. Another panelist asked about the order of the emergency sequence. Eric gave a polished answer that explained nothing. Laura paused the recording. Mr. Cole, Laura said, why does medical support move before communications are restored? Eric swallowed. In a crisis, speed is essential. That is not an explanation, Laura said. He looked at his attorney. No answer came. Marcus turned toward me. Major Cole, can you answer? The wounded cannot wait for a system to become functional, I said. Medical movement begins first. Communications are rebuilt around that movement. Reversing the order costs time, and time costs lives. Nobody spoke. Marcus resumed the screen. Approved news footage showed smoke, vehicles, and my younger voice ordering the medical team forward. The reporter said, the mission commander was Major Samantha Cole. Eric closed his eyes. When the lights came back, Hawthorne's general counsel folded his hands. Mr. Cole, your candidacy is terminated. Your employment is also terminated for material dishonesty, misuse of another person's work, and conduct incompatible with executive trust. Eric's face went slack. The counsel continued. You are ineligible for rehire. Pending bonus and equity consideration tied to the candidacy are canceled. Related intellectual property claims will be referred for civil review. Then he looked at Judith. Mrs. Cole, Hawthorne is terminating your advisory agreement immediately. Your mentoring access is revoked. Your award nomination is withdrawn. Prior referrals associated with your account will be reviewed. Judith's voice cracked. After everything I gave this company? Marcus answered. This hearing concerns what you took. Eric turned on her. You said your relationships would protect me. Judith stared at him. You said Samantha would never be named. You told me to call her administrative. You brought me stolen work. You edited it. Their voices rose over each other. I sat still. For years, both had demanded that I preserve the family. Now neither could preserve the other. Eric's attorney pulled him back into his chair. Eric looked at me. Sam, please. Rachel shifted beside me. Eric continued. Tell them we developed it together. One sentence. That is all. He did not ask forgiveness. He asked for one final lie. I stood. You spent years speaking for me, I said. Now you can live with your own words. Eric said my name again as Rachel and I walked toward the door. Behind us, Judith began blaming him. Eric blamed her back. The door closed on both voices. The silence in the hallway felt cleaner than any applause, because for the first time, their consequences no longer depended on my mercy. The elevator doors closed before Eric reached the hallway. Through the narrowing gap, I saw him break free from his attorney and call my name again. Judith stood behind him, one hand pressed to her chest, her pearls crooked against her collarbone. Then the doors met. Rachel exhaled beside me. You did not owe him that lie, she said. I know. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Outside, cold air moved between the glass buildings. Traffic hissed over wet pavement. Somewhere nearby, coffee beans were roasting, and the warm scent drifted across the sidewalk before disappearing beneath exhaust. Rachel stopped beside her car. Hawthorne's decision helps, she said. But the divorce is separate. Eric will still fight over the house, the transferred money, and the framework. He can fight. That answer sounds expensive. It probably is. Rachel gave me a tired smile. Good. You understand. By the time I returned to the temporary apartment, Hawthorne had disabled Eric's company email, building access, and internal accounts. Judith's profile had vanished from the advisory page before dinner. Eric called twice. Judith called 6 times. I answered neither. Instead, I opened the folder containing the temporary residence agreement. Eric had 5 days to remove his personal belongings from our home. He could enter only during scheduled windows coordinated through council. Judith had no permission to accompany him. Every key and garage remote had to be returned. The house still belonged to both of us financially, but possession would be mine while the case continued. For the first time in weeks, I could picture sleeping in my own bed without wondering who had touched my files. 3 days later, Rachel and I met Eric at the house. A neutral property coordinator stood in the foyer with a clipboard. Eric moved from room to room carrying boxes while I waited in the kitchen. Our wedding photograph still hung beside the dining room. He stopped in front of it. You are really going to leave that up? Eric asked. Until I decide what replaces it. He looked toward the dining table, the same table where Judith had called me a desk jockey. I lost everything, he said. You lost a job. My career. You used mine to build it. My mother is finished too. That was her choice. Eric turned toward me. You sound like none of this hurts you. My fingers pressed against the countertop. The stone felt cold enough to sting. It hurts enough that I stopped protecting you from the consequences. He carried the last box outside without answering. When the door shut, the coordinator placed 3 keys and 1 garage remote on the counter. Everything listed has been returned, she said. I looked at the keys. One was missing. Judith's. Rachel documented it immediately. The locksmith arrived that afternoon. Each old cylinder dropped into his metal tray with a dull clink. New keys slid across my palm, sharp and clean. That night I slept in the house alone. The heater clicked on just after midnight. Pipes shifted inside the walls. Rain brushed the roof in soft waves. Nothing moved downstairs. No phone lit beside me. No one searched my folders. The silence did not feel empty. It felt earned. The financial fight began the following week. Eric's attorney argued that the money transferred to Judith had been moved for safekeeping. Bank records showed otherwise. Part had already paid Eric's legal retainer. Another portion had covered Judith's mortgage and a private club balance. Rachel placed every transaction into a timeline. During settlement negotiations, Eric sat across from me without looking up. Rachel spoke first. The transferred funds will be treated as an advance against Mr. Cole's share of marital property. Amounts spent for his separate legal defense will not be charged to Major Cole. Eric's attorney objected. Rachel slid the statements forward. If this goes before a judge, we will also seek fees for concealment and unnecessary litigation. Eric finally looked at me. You want the house too? I want the option to buy your share. You cannot afford it alone. My lender disagrees. His face tightened. The house had been our largest asset. Eric believed that meant it remained his final leverage. It did not. An independent appraisal established the equity. The transferred savings reduced what he could claim. My refinance approval covered the remaining buyout. Rachel added one more condition. Mr. Cole permanently waives any right to use, license, publish, or claim authorship of the Operational Resilience Framework. Eric leaned back. That document is not worth what she thinks. Then signing should be easy, Rachel said. He stared at the page for a long time. Finally, he signed. The written acknowledgement beneath his signature named me as the sole author. I watched the ink dry. That small black line returned something no apology could. Judith arrived at the house 2 mornings later. The old key scraped inside the new lock. I heard it from the kitchen. Metal clicked again. Then the doorbell rang. The camera showed Judith standing beneath the porch light, her mouth tight with anger. I opened the door but kept one hand on the frame. You changed the locks, Judith said. Yes. Eric still owns part of this house. He has a financial interest until the settlement closes. He does not have possession under the agreement. I am his mother. That gives you neither. Judith held up the old key. I only wanted to talk. You were required to return every copy. I forgot I had it. No, you did not. Her perfume drifted through the doorway, gardenia over cold morning air. Judith's eyes moved past me into the foyer. This family gave you everything. I almost smiled. My service record, my work, and my name did not come from your family. You destroyed my son. Eric presented stolen work as his own. You could have corrected him privately. I tried. He threatened my clearance and moved our money. Judith's face trembled. People will never look at me the same way again. That is not because of me. She lowered the key. My award nomination is gone. My mentoring program removed me. Women I trained are asking whether I ever respected them. Did you? The question struck harder than anger. Judith looked away. I held out my hand. The key. For a moment, she seemed to believe refusing would restore her authority. Then the brass dropped into my palm. I placed it inside an envelope already labeled for Rachel. Judith stared at the sealed edge. You planned this. I documented it. Her shoulders fell. Without Eric beside her, she looked smaller. Not harmless, just smaller. She walked down the steps without another word. The divorce settlement closed 6 weeks later. Eric received the adjusted buyout after the missing funds were credited against his share. Judith returned what remained in her account. The amounts already spent stayed attached to Eric's side of the ledger. I refinanced the mortgage in my name. When the new deed arrived, I ran my fingertips over the paper. The house had not been awarded to me as a prize. I had paid for it twice. Once with money. Once with the life I thought we were building inside it. Eric sent one final email after the deed transfer. He wrote that Judith had stopped speaking to him, except to blame him for losing her position. He said recruiters ended calls once Hawthorne confirmed he was not eligible for rehire. He asked whether I felt satisfied. I read the message at the dining table. Satisfaction was not the word. Relief had a sound. It was the turn of my own lock at night. Relief had a texture. It was clean paper beneath my hand, with my name printed where it belonged. I archived his email without replying. His regret was no longer a responsibility I carried. Colonel Denise Warren called the following month. The review is complete, Denise said. Your framework is cleared for the leadership program. Under what title? The Cole Operational Resilience Framework. I hesitated. Do you want it changed? Denise asked. For days, I had considered returning to my maiden name. Eric and Judith had treated Cole like a family brand they owned. But I had carried that name through deployments, promotions, and the mission that created the work. No, I said. Keep it. The program launched at a military leadership conference in Virginia. I stood backstage while an instructor introduced the material. The Cole Operational Resilience Framework was developed by Major Samantha Cole from lessons in command, communication failure, and emergency medical movement. My name appeared beneath the title. No husband beside it. No footnote calling me support. From the stage, the audience looked like a quiet field of faces waiting to learn. I did not tell them about Eric. The work no longer needed his failure to prove its value. That evening, the local news aired a brief segment about the program. I watched from my living room, the same room where Judith's fork had once struck a plate. On screen, the reporter repeated my name. I turned off the television before the segment ended. Wind moved through the open window. Fresh paint and wet earth scented the room. A new brass key rested beside the framework binder on my desk. For years, Eric and Judith had believed my silence meant there was space to write over me. They were wrong. Silence had only given me room to hear every lie clearly. Now the house was quiet. My name was mine, and nobody held a key to either one.